right, good afternoon, Oklahoma. It's great to be back. I want to tell some stories, try to stitch together a number of the details that our previous speakers were able to give, and somewhat anticipate where we are today and how we might get to a better place. I'm going to start by telling a few stories. The gentleman standing in the left panel perhaps imagines the world should be as we see it depicted, where children own their neighborhoods, people come down to coffee houses, there are destinations, people ride bikes, and active transportation is life. But he's living in La La Land. That's Disney World. The real world became something very different because we took our eye off of the prize. We lost our traction. And now we sit in traffic far more than we want. We find we're not taking care of sidewalks. We've got endless streams of meaningless stuff. And when we get older, we can't walk. So what I'd like to do with the minutes available to me is really capture the way that we go forward from here. And I'm going to try to establish a couple of very key points. The biggest point, we can no longer afford to squander money on things that devalue land. And I think the key point is we know how to do it. We've done it before, and we did it naturally decades ago, but we're going to learn how to do it again, and the people that will make that happen are here today. You've got the, I'll agree with Jeff, this is the best collection of speakers I've ever had the opportunity to speak with. It's fabulous. And this audience will do it. So what I'd like to do is celebrate those who are here, those who are your best speakers, and I think we captured all of them. Let's see. No, I think one person was missing. But also, I want to celebrate. Okay, we have to hit that escape key, don't we? We want to celebrate the people who are here because the speakers do the easy work. You're the ones that are going to actually go out, figure out what research you need, how do you justify it, how do you make it happen. And so I'm just going to go through a whole series of communities that are in this together with you. This happens to be Vernon. It's in British Columbia. I think you can see why the land here is going to be worth anywhere from 3 to 5 times more than just having built something that was only for cars. I'll go back one here. Sorry about that. This is where I worked for 16 years, the Florida Department of Transportation. And this is a road that was built to rush everybody home at night. It was when we were only thinking of one thing. But very sadly, this road takes a life every year, typically a pedestrian. It's the town-gown connection for Florida State. It's been doing that for over 40 years. We're hopeful that within 5 or 10 years, people will wake up and say, we do not need 7 lanes. 4 would move traffic better. And it's just absolutely true. Bigger is not always better. In fact, in almost every case, bigger is more expensive, does more harm, and it eliminates any choice. Notice the sign says walk. Does anybody see a pedestrian? This is the entry to a high school in Maui. This is what we've gotten to. Think about that not one person in view, and yet if you're a driver and you aren't interested in going to high school, you want to just get through, you wait there for 20 minutes because there's only one way to get to a high school. And this is actually a fairly centrally located high school. Another key point I'd like to make today is that we cannot just blame engineers for doing what we asked them to do. They did it, and they did it better than we might want them to have done it. We now have to add into the mix planners, architects, landscape architects, economists, developers, everyone, right? And that too is why we're here. Now let me get into the economics. I really want to paint a solid picture for economics because in addition to our concerns with health, we better be concerned with whether or not we can afford to maintain the things we built. The street on the top, 7 lanes, 6,000 cars. You can move 18,000 cars in 1 lane if you don't interrupt it in a day. True story, a benefactor was on his way to give a check, a very large check, to the university in Spartanburg. And after a mile or two of driving that road, he tapped on the shoulder of the chauffeur, said, "Go back to the airport. A town this ugly doesn't deserve our money." True story. The lower photo moves 54,000 cars in 4 lanes as opposed to 7. Where is the economy of building things that are ugly, that tear apart a gateway, a sensibility in a community? Same here. This is a town I'm doing work in Iowa. We have a road that you rarely see cars. You can't walk. You can't bike comfortably. And I believe the count there is about 8,000 cars a day. And again, 7 lanes essentially. The lower road only has 4, plus parking, plus bike lanes, and it moves 54,000 cars a day. Which one makes more money? Which one makes sense? So I think it's important that as we transform this, say, from a 7-lane road down to a 4-lane road, plus a huge bike lane, that it's seeding new investments. This is West Sacramento, and this went from a horrible place to walk through to one that's very pleasant, and now very pleasant to drive through. So, another key point. We're going to do a lot of what we need to do through transportation. We have to. We decided that's where the money will be, and we've always built cities around transportation, starting with our feet, adding a horse, a donkey, a mule, a trolley. And today, we still are going to build our cities around transportation. They'll be active, they'll be healthier, but if we don't spend the money on doing transportation right, we will further destroy our economy. When I was about to graduate from high school in 1961, Jane Jacobs pretty well captured so much of what we need, but one of those statements she made really, I think, stands out, and that is, we have to understand the complexity of cities. We can't just blame the automobile. We've got to find the solutions by understanding how cities work. So when we invented suburbia, had it been a short-term thing, a decade or 2, but not 7, we would be fine. We wouldn't be having the ripples in the economy. And by the way, nobody forecasts that suburbia would take us here. This is Las Vegas. I think it's important to understand the principles of how, we got here and how we go forward. And I want to be holistic. Livability is very broad. This is the first development in the United States. And it's within walking distance of everything. It's very affordable because you could live on just 5 cents of your dollar you earn instead of 25 cents. And you know your neighbors and your social life, your physical life, your psychological life is all better. Now, come on. This is then, of course, the way we rewrote the script, separate everything from everything. There's no reason to have character or personality. The home market wants to just have 2-car garages and you can showcase them. Who would walk in either of these locations because there's nowhere to go to, and in many cases, there's no one there to even see you. So we need to understand that as we figure out placemaking, it's all going to be based on understanding the economy and understand what makes the most money, what it brings the greatest opportunity to the greatest number of people. And to not leave out children. So if we were to say that all of what we do from here on out is going to be based on designing an environment that works for children and one that works for seniors, we're going to get it right. Everyone in the middle gets served. No reason to read each of these, but what I'll share with you in this map, the great-grandfather used to go 6 miles by foot to go fishing on his own at 8. Next generation was down to 1 mile. Next generation down to a half a mile. And today, it's 300 yards for an 8-year-old child, 300 yards. Seniors, the same thing. The baby boom generation is really coming strong, and if we can't maintain their health, our health costs are going to continue to soar. We've got to have age-friendly communities. And we've got to be able to take a lot of our parents and our elders back off of medications. And the simplest way to do that, at least to reduce the prescriptions, is simply to give more activity and make walking the natural way to move. Now let's get into the pure economics. Michigan hit the recession over 20 years ago. They were too focused on only one industry. So they have pulled together this book. It's written by 7 of the greatest economists in our country, including Chris Lineberger. And it basically says the economy of Michigan, and I think it's true in Oklahoma or anywhere, it has to be built on place. It's what's going to attract the jobs. Now the good news is a lot of your smaller communities and larger ones were laid out at a time where we used common sense. We had the right block form. We aligned our streets with waterfronts. We did all the right things. But then we took our eye off of the prize again, and just to show what happened by changing out code, changing out practices, changing out incentives, we ended up with this. This is one of the poorest towns in Florida at the time, Fort Pierce, and they came together, crafted a new vision, and most of what you see here is now built out. This gives me immense hope. We also need destinations and protect them. When the postmaster says he's going to take the post office out near the freeway, you lose much. We need downtowns to be a place where you go and then spend time in a coffee house or buy a hat or whatever. So let me tell a few stories to get us further along. This is a very conservative part of America. It's southern Alabama. It happens to be Gulf Shores, Orange Beach. I was doing work there for the AARP. And we got to this point, and they said, Dan, this is where we'd like to put our village. The very thing we were talking about this morning. Build villages, don't build traffic. And so as we worked there, I learned some information, and I said, you're about to build this. Is this what you want? That night when I presented this image to the audience, looking off to my left a little bit, I saw someone crying. I knew who it was. It was the traffic engineer. Kit. I said, Kit, I've never seen a traffic engineer cry. Why are you crying? She said, Dan, we're at 90% plans completion. And then there was a pause. And she said, can we change it? I said, Kit, I give you permission. She got the 2 communities together. They went to the Alabama DOT. It was their road. And what they will now build is this. Build villages, don't build traffic. Now, one reason they were going to add the extra lanes was for hurricane evacuation. So we looked at a map with them, and I said, you know, you've got 12 square miles of rural preserve. You'll never build anything here. But you will get permission to build a bike trail. So build a bike trail. And when you build that bike trail, make it 14 feet wide. And build super strong bridges, because when people need to get out of Dodge, you now have that extra route out. So now you can use FEMA monies. The next principle, use every dollar you have at least 4 ways. Does it meet a recreational need, a transportation need, a new housing need, set the stage for better commercial development? Spend a dollar 4 different ways. And it doesn't matter the size of the scale of the community or where in the country. This is Mound Bayou, what I believe to be the very first all African-American community, settled just after the end of the Civil War. And we work with them. What they most want to kickstart their little community is place. They want to celebrate their culture, their history. They're very proud of having had to build the first hospital because the culture wouldn't let them go into a hospital. starting their own health insurance company because no health insurer would insure them, and many, many other things. Or Chincoteague on the Eastern Shore, going from no place to some place, perhaps even to great place. Brattleboro in Vermont. Again, we're looking at all the different regions. What is needed most, here near a hospital, a way for the hospital workers to walk down to a real place rather than strip, and to have a gateway into Brattleboro. Or Hot Springs, Arkansas, from a devalued, disinvested neighborhood to one that will bring back life, vitality, enrich the downtown, and really bring a sense of place. Also in Hot Springs, Arkansas, a intersection that totally chokes up after every horse race ends. This, during race season, I believe it's 3 months long. And it takes 20 police officers 2 hours to discharge the traffic. Use your dollar multiple ways, and in this case, a far more efficient and productive roundabout. Now you've allowed all of the land values to skyrocket. This will be quiet, it'll be peaceful, you can walk through it, you can drive, you can get home sooner, just simply by using a tool that's very powerful. Now, what's the value of place? This is a spot in the Midwest. I'm going to take you to another location, but can everybody see there's a lot of squandered space, right? This is, can you see the same curb line here? This is Monterey. And in Monterey, when they put in this little pocket park, it's now full of life from about 6 in the morning to about 11 at night. 4 or 5 nice little destination stores, that's what we need. And here's the wonderful thing. This park costs very little to build. It's now cranking out huge amounts of new money. And all homes within a 5-mile walk are worth a lot more. You build for making more money. And then people will have a place to come to. Does everybody see the one remaining pedestrian in Missoula, Montana? I went back 3 days later and she was still stuck there. Now I show these two pictures together because they are both by functional classification the same road. They're both primary arterials. Which one is more beautiful? Lower right. Which one makes a lot more money? Lower right. Which one's safer? Which one moves more traffic? The lower right. So why is our default the worst possible design we can come up with? The one that's going to bankrupt a city over time, the one that's going to kill more people and fail to meet any test in livability. So when we see Marine Drive in Dunderave, it's a little town, probably as small as many of your smallest towns here. They're making money. They are a destination because they worked on spending their transportation dollars to set a stage for success. One day I was working for my client, the top photo, Claremont, California, shot that image, and then before I went down, I turned around in the bucket truck and shot the adjacent town, Pomona. This is Highway 66. It's the same drivers. It's the same funding source, Caltrans, and all written from the same design guidebook. There's enough range in most guidebooks that if we get our vision together, we can have either of the two. One of my very favorite projects we launched around 1999. This road was taking a number of lives. It had, well, contrary to the name, there was no university. There was no place. They had no town center. And so we got together, crafted a public process that worked. Within 1 year, this was on the ground. This is a town that had only been incorporated for 2 years. They had no money of consequence. I think it was $450,000 in the entire public works budget for the whole city. And within 2 years, they had tracked $45 million because of what they built. Cities, state, county wanted to give them money. So here it was in 1999, just after construction. Here it is 9 years later. By building green and building to create a place, a sense of come and invest here, This town is now setting the stage for many towns throughout the state of Washington. We need models. We need models in a neighborhood or in any town of size or scale that others that can come to and see. This is one of my absolute favorites. It's La Jolla Boulevard in San Diego. And this is the way it was. This is the way it is today. It was, as you see here, 5 lanes. Speeds were up in the 40s. That would take out any human life. And by making a few changes, taking out all the signals, putting in roundabouts, we took it down to 2 lanes with 23,000 cars. We now have a benchmark, something that other people can showcase. And now the stores are making at least 30% more money. And now we're seeing walking go up at least tenfold, bicycling at least tenfold. Noise dropped 77%. I had my back turned to traffic and thought that, well, there must be a stall in traffic because I'm not hearing a single sound. I turned around and the traffic was just flowing. People now drive 19 miles an hour. They get home sooner. We need to use the right tools. This is the man who did it, Scott Peters. He was at that time the president of the San Diego City Council, brought me in after a lecture, and he then decided to run for Congress. He's now a U.S. congressman. We need to grow our political leaders to have influence not only at the state level, but the national level. I interviewed the druggist here, and he said, Dan, I never would have come here if the traffic was moving as fast as it was. This is a huge moneymaker for the city, to have the right places, the right people, the right activities. People now come down in the evenings to socialize. And this is going to be my key point of the day. We need good public process. If we don't have good public process, we lose. I want to honor my fellow speakers and make sure I end on time. So I'll end here, if that's okay. And thank you so much for allowing me to be a speaker.